The 6 Tenets of FinerHealth is something that I have come to over a number of years. Started about 15 years ago with a plan I used to call 10 Steps to Finer Health. And I would say, number one, that this is a departure from the Western model of medicine, which mostly treats symptoms. Your body, when it breaks, then you fix it only to wait for it to break again. And then there's more symptom-related treatments and medicines. So on the one hand, this is a departure from that, in that this is an ideology that is intended to keep people from ever getting sick, number one. And I'd also say that over the last 10 to 15 years, I have realized the importance of our emotional, mental, and spiritual health in addition to our physical health. So my 6 tenets of Finer Health, which I'm unveiling at this point, is number one, is probably the most conventional one, is proper diet. And proper diet primarily involves a diet centered on fruits, vegetables, nuts, and healthy meats if you eat meat. And these are the only foods that have ever been shown in studies to actually prevent diseases, prevent cancer, to increase longevity, to help people lose weight, and anything else has never been found to be a benefit. So proper diet's number one. Number two is adequate sleep. And while that sounds like somewhat of a mundane idea, I have deduced from my own personal experience and from my own intuitive idea of health, the higher truth of health is what I call all of this, that without sleep, we cannot function, number one. Our energy is dependent on it. Our acid-base balance is dependent on it. And as I used to say, that keeping prisoners of war from sleeping is a form of torture. And so if we keep ourselves from proper sleep, we're torturing ourselves. So proper sleep, adequate sleep is number two. Number three is actually the concept of being happy. And, you know, I am surprised today how rare it is that I find people most often and most people happy. It seems that it's a chore and a challenge, and I do set it as a goal for myself. In fact, I have a sticky note among many that I have in my presence that being happy is one of the hardest things I've ever set out to do, and yet I'm going to do it. And in fact, I have a new song on my latest album, and it's called In Pursuit of Happiness. And so being happy and laughing and being grateful are all part of this concept of happiness. And if you go to my website or read my brochures, you'll see a lot about health, happiness, and hope. So happiness is vital to health, just like health is vital to happiness. Number four is the concept that love is medicine. And, you know, after I brought the gluten sensitivity revolution to the world, and I feel like it has been delivered and I've succeeded at doing that, I asked one time in a meditation, you know, what's the next revolution I am to bring? And the idea that I got immediately is that love is medicine, and that I and others need to popularize this. And it's really repopularize it. It's not a new concept. It's an old concept. It's an Old Testament concept. You know, love thy neighbor as thyself was one of the most important attributes of the 5 books of Moses, the Torah. And so it turns out that the vibration of love, which is also a spiritual vibration and the vibration of God, you will hear more often about God is blank. That blank will be filled in with love more than any other answer to that phrase. And so to use love as medicine for yourself and for others is an essential part of lasting health and vitality. The fifth one is exercising your creative purpose and being creative. And this is linked to happiness in some respects, but it's also linked to your purpose, our purpose, all of our purposes, and to creation itself. So if God created the world and created man in his image to be creative, then what we are doing when we are creative is extending the act of creation through us, given by God, And it is my observation in myself, I'd have to say, but perhaps in others as well, that a stifled drive of creativity is a frustrating energy. I believe it causes resentment and unhappiness, and will eventually lead a person to experience poor health because they're not expressing their need to be creative and spiritual, really. And so the last one, and this I believe is really the revolution, as I use the term, that spiritual health itself is a vital part of overall health. And the way we nurture our spirit really is in many ways. Number one is being in nature is a very spiritual energy. And a lot of us are kind of caught up in our jobs and in the cities and what have you. So as often as you can, we need to be in contact with nature, number one. We certainly need to connect with the Creator and to our spiritual selves as spiritual beings. Prayer is a way of doing that, meditation, reading spiritual literature, or just contemplating, being open to the idea at all that there is a God, there is a Creator. And that I would say that while religion is not necessarily the path of everyone's spirituality, that it's a great path for most people. You know, that while religion is really a man-made vehicle to help with our spirituality, if you have such a religion and it works for you, then by all means, you contact that and be of service in that environment. It's not a requirement that spirituality be exercised in a religious affiliation or in a church or a synagogue or a mosque or an ashram or however else people would, the places people go to. In fact, I find myself, while I do service in synagogues, I tend to find my most spiritual moments in nature and really with myself. And I think it's worth mentioning here, trying to be objective and, with medical facts, that there are parts of the brain that light up when people are praying or meditating on PET scans and special types of scans of the activity in our brain. Only when praying and meditating, but under no other activity or other thought process. So it really seems that we have a very particular, specific part of our brains dedicated to this. And truthfully, every society and civilization has had some form of spirituality. But the revolution here, again, is really probably an old concept trying to bring a new, is that we must nurture our souls and our spirit with activities of spiritual nourishment. Otherwise, we can't really be mentally, emotionally, or physically healthy.